Hi, everybody. It's Miss Mitchell here today on this wonderful Tuesday. I hope you guys are all doing well. We are here to read our next case in Encyclopedia Brown. Today we have the case of the Balloon Man. Wonder what this one could be about. The case of the Balloon Man. Balloon Man. Let's read to figure this case out. Get those detective brains working. Start to think like Encyclopedia Brown. Hopefully, we can figure this out together. Leroy, Mrs. Brown called. Leroy, it's time for dinner. Wash up, please. Encyclopedia put down the book he was reading, 6 Ways to Reach the Moon on a Budget. In the bathroom, he gave his face a lick and a promise. When he got to the table, his father looked at him in a strange way. Do you know Bobby Tyler? Chief Brown asked his only child. Sure, said Encyclopedia. He was in my homeroom last year. Did anything happen to him, Dad? He's missing, said Chief Brown. You mean he ran away from home? Chief Brown shook his head. Encyclopedia gasped. Mrs. Brown stopped in the kitchen doorway, her eyes opened wide. Kidnapped? Mother and son asked together. It looks that way, answered Chief Brown. Do you know who took Bobby? Asked Mrs. Brown. Yes, Izzy the Balloon Man. Izzy? Cried Encyclopedia. No, Dad, Izzy couldn't do anything so terrible. What do you know about Izzy? Asked Chief Brown gently. Do you know what kind of man he really is? Do you even know where he lives? I know that he loves children, insisted Encyclopedia. Otherwise, he wouldn't do what he does for a living. He has an old truck and sells ice cream, candy, and soda, mostly to children, Chief Brown explained to his wife. Why is he called the Balloon Man? She asked. If you buy more than 15 cents worth of candy or anything, he gives you a green and pink balloon for free, answered Encyclopedia. I guess Izzy got tired of blowing up balloons, said Chief Brown quietly. Bobby's father is wealthy, so Izzy. I don't believe it, exclaimed Encyclopedia. You ought to see Izzy stick the end of a balloon in his mouth and huff and puff like a steam engine till it's blown up. He always makes funny faces so the kids will laugh. All right, son, said Chief Brown. I'll accept 3 facts. 1. Izzy is a funny fellow who always blows up balloons with his mouth for laughs. 2. Children love him and he loves children. And 3. Sam Potts saw him kidnap little Bobby Tyler this afternoon. There was an eyewitness? Encyclopedia asked. Mr. Potts came down to headquarters when he heard little Bobby was missing. He gave me a complete statement, said Chief Brown. I made some notes to bring home to you. Want to hear them? Encyclopedia closed his eyes, as he always did before using his brain at full power. Go ahead, Dad. Should we close our eyes too? I don't think I can read if I have my eyes closed. But maybe close your eyes. Really think about it. Chief Brown took his notebook from his breast pocket. He looked it over a moment. Then he repeated what Mr. Potts had told him. This morning, Izzy made a stop near Bobby Tyler's house and drove off, or so it appeared. Chief Brown began. Later, Sam Potts and Reverend Bevan were in Sam's backyard, which is right behind the Tylers' walled backyard. Sam saw a green and pink balloon, the kind Izzy gives away, rise into his oak tree, continued Chief Brown. The balloon stuck high among the branches because there was no breeze to blow the balloon loose. Sam got a long ladder and climbed into the tree. Chief Brown paused as he turned over a page in his notebook. He went on. From up in the tree, Sam could see over the Tyler's 12-foot wall. Sam says that as he freed the balloon, he looked down in the Tyler's yard. He saw Izzy put Bobby into his truck and drive off. Sam told Reverend Bevan that what he had just seen. Both men took it for granted that Bobby's mother had said he could go for a ride in Izzy's truck. Later, when the Reverend learned that Bobby was missing, he advised Sam Potts to see me. Chief Brown closed his notebook. We have a picture here, too, that was Sam was climbing into the tree to go fetch the balloon. Chief Brown closed his notebook. An hour after Sam Potts had told me what he had seen, Bobby's father telephoned. He had received a note. It said he must pay $60,000 or never see Bobby again. He would learn where to leave the money tomorrow. Chief Brown stopped talking. Both he and Mrs. Brown looked at Encyclopedia. Idyville's ace detective kept his eyes closed and thought a long time after his father had finished talking. At last, he opened his eyes. He asked two questions. It seldom took more than two to solve a mystery when his father gave him the facts. How does Mr. Potts earn his living? He asked first. His father frowned. Why, I don't know. He's only been in Idyville 2 months. He doesn't own the house behind the Tylers. He just rents it. Encyclopedia's second question was, did Reverend Bevan see the balloon fly into the tree? No, said his father, but Sam Potts did, and the Reverend saw it stuck in the branches. What difference does the balloon make? It solves the case, answered Encyclopedia. Do you know where Bobby is? Asked his mother anxiously. Is he unhurt? I don't know that, Mom, said Encyclopedia, realizing that he had spoken too quickly. But I know who kidnapped Bobby. We already know that, pointed out Chief Brown. It was Izzy the Balloon Man. No, Izzy has probably been kidnapped too, said Encyclopedia. Chief Brown sat back and stared. The guilty man, said Encyclopedia, had to find someone to blame Bobby's kidnapping on, so Izzy was chosen. So Izzy has to be kept hidden or he'll deny the crime. What makes you so all fire certain Izzy didn't kidnap Bobby Tyler? Demanded Chief Brown. Because Mr. Potts kidnapped Bobby, answered Encyclopedia. Sam Potts may be a stranger in Idyville, but that doesn't make him a kidnapper, said Chief Brown angrily. And don't forget, Reverend Bevan was right there with him. Mr. Potts wanted him to be there, said Encyclopedia. The Reverend was a perfect witness, but the Reverend couldn't see over the wall into Bobby's backyard. He had to accept what Mr. Potts up in the tree said he saw. Are you telling me that Sam Potts used the Reverend? Said Chief Brown. He did, said Encyclopedia. I'm sorry, son, said Chief Brown. You just don't have any reason for saying Mr. Potts lied about seeing Izzy put Bobby into his truck. I have a very good reason, Dad, said Encyclopedia. Mr. Potts may have gotten away with the kidnapping and collected the $60,000 ransom, but he overlooked one simple fact about Izzy. So what had Mr. Potts overlooked? He overlooked something that helped Encyclopedia. We're going to turn to the end, but as I'm turning, what could he have overlooked? Any guesses? I'm kind of clueless on this one. Does anybody have any ideas? Go ahead and put it in the comments or talk about it with somebody next to you. Any ideas on the solution? How Encyclopedia knew that it was Mr. Potts? And there was something Mr. Potts had overlooked about Izzy. Aaron says, I don't know. I don't know either, Aunt Aaron. I'm kind of clueless. Let's see. Encyclopedia is one smart kid to be figuring out all these cases. It is a tough one. Mr. Potts overlooked. Here we go. Here's the solution. You guys ready? I got right into it. I wanted to know. Here's the solution to the case of the balloon man. Mr. Potts overlooked the fact that Izzy always blew up his green and pink balloons with his mouth. That is, the balloons had nothing but breath or air in them. Balloons with nothing but air in them do not rise high into a tree on a day without breeze. They sink to the earth. That was the first part. That, I didn't even think about that. If you blow it up with your mouth, the balloon would just kind of sink. You have to pump it up with other stuff to make it float high up into the air. Only a balloon blown up with something lighter than air, such as helium, will rise high into the air. Encyclopedia immediately realized that Mr. Potts had planted the balloon in the tree ahead of time. Then he had told the Reverend he had just seen it. This gave Mr. Potts the chance to climb up the ladder, looking over the 12-foot wall as he pretended to see Izzy kidnapping little Bobby. Encyclopedia knew that Mr. Potts must have kidnapped both Izzy and Bobby at some earlier time. When Chief Brown heard this, he went to Mr. Potts' house. He found Bobby and Izzy tied up. Izzy's truck was hidden in Mr. Potts' garage. Caught, Mr. Potts confessed. He had rented the house behind the Tylers in order to kidnap Bobby and hold him for the ransom money. Yes, helium is what the word I was looking for earlier. So that's what Mr. Potts overlooked. Izzy always blew up his balloons with air. They wouldn't have floated. So Mr. Potts must have used helium to kind of place that balloon so him and the Reverend would see Tyler at the Tyler's house that Bobby was being kidnapped. Kind of set it up to have some witnesses. That was a tricky one, but whew, he is a very bad dude. I agree. I thought it was going to have something to do with the color of the balloons because I always said green and pink, and I was like, ooh, it's going to be a different color balloon, but I was wrong. Good. I'm glad you guys liked the story today. Tomorrow we will be back with the case of the ambushed cowboy. Ooh, cowboys and Indians, maybe. The case of the ambushed cowboy. Feel free to join me again tomorrow. Same time, we'll be here at noon to read our next case. All right, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.